These people are trying to time the market like they're Confucius and they know what's going on. Your parents have bought two properties in their entire life and you're listening to them like it is gospel. Of course, this all could have been avoided. They should have seen it coming from the very start. Searching for a home can feel like a full-time job. Endless listings, confusing market trends, and houses that pop up but disappear before you can even book a showing. Everybody has an opinion on what you should do with your money when you're considering buying a home, whether you should get in the market, whether you should wait, and you hear about this market crash that is always impending and looming over your head like a dark cloud following you absolutely everywhere. But what if I told you there was a statistics based, fact based way to know exactly what the market's gonna do? What if I told you there was a faster, smarter way to buy a home, to find the right home without wasting months of time chasing dead ends? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna get into in day 4 of our Home Buyers series. We're gonna talk about things like how to absolutely nail and master the home search. We're also going to talk about all of those people that want to tell you that the market is going to crash. And hey, look, I can't tell you whether the market's going to crash or not, but I'm going to teach you how to think like an investor and read the tea leaves so you know exactly what is happening and you can make the most accurate market predictions available. Not only that, but we're going to talk about how to write an offer that's going to win you the listing, whether you are in competition or not. And lastly, I want to make sure that you stay away from the lemons, the bad homes that could absolutely burn you. So if that all sounds like something you want to dive into in today's session, let's get into it right now. So today's session is titled, You Only Get One Chance to Buy Your Home. And that is absolutely true. In fact, that is the actual slogan of the German Group. We really believe that. You've really got one chance and you don't want to get it wrong because getting it wrong is such a problem. It's such a costly issue and it's a long-term problem. It's not something you can easily solve overnight. So today's whole session is gold at getting it absolutely perfect. So let's jump into mastering the search. Okay. Searching for a home is much, much more than just simply swiping on listings online. And here's an interesting thing. I mean, you might use various websites to search for real estate. There is a million of them out there. We typically will recommend realtor.ca. They've got a phenomenal program, phenomenal app. And in fact, this is not a program that's trying to sell you anything like a lot of the other major portals that are available. In fact, you might know or you might not know that oftentimes a lot of these other real estate portals that you're using right now to search for real estate, when you make inquiries on listings and whatnot, it's not even actually the listing agent that's typically getting back to you. It's someone that's paid to be getting your information. They're considering you a lead and they want to try and get your business. So realtor.ca is our number one recommendation. But in terms of really mastering the home search, what should you do and what should you not do? Well, one of the first things that we're always recommending is you really have to have a good think about your must-haves, your must-not-haves, and some of those things that we call the fluff. You know, the things that you might think that are important, but they're maybe really not. This happens all the time. You know, I'd love a backyard and an ocean view and a south-facing yard and you know, a triple car garage and a hot tub, and you know, we've all got these things that we absolutely want. When you're buying a home, and for most of us, we simply have a budget and we can't afford to necessarily get everything we want. In fact, we usually say there's no 10 out of 10 homes out there. There's 8 out of 10s, and maybe those 8 out of 10s can turn into 9 out of 10s based on what you can do to them over time. But there's no 10 out of 10 house. That's a unicorn house. And we all have a budget. You know, if you want the absolute dream house, you're usually going to have to buy it. So getting very, very or build it rather. So getting really, really clear on what you want when you buy a home and what you have to have is really important. So oftentimes, you know, the number one thing that we recommend is you want to consider the location first. You can't pick the home up and move it. You know, you've got a budget that you have to stay within. You want the absolute best location. Those are the two bigger things, but then of course you get into the price, or the square footage or the type of home or that sort of thing. You might have a family, you might have specific needs and what you need for that specific home, which is totally fine. So you want to make sure that you're picking a home that's going to accomplish some of those main items. Then there's secondary items, there's tertiary items. So you want to really have a really good think about that. And one of the best things to do is really sit down with a real estate professional that you've chosen one and have a good discussion about those. And oftentimes it's really good for us as real estate professionals to be on the same page as you, because buying a home can be really emotional. A lot of things change as soon as I show you a place that has an ocean view, as an example. You might forget all the reasons that you set out to do this. So having a conversation with your real estate professional is really important to get them on the same page. Location, price, and the style and type of home that you need. Everything else is kind of negotiable typically. So when you're searching, what works well and what doesn't work well? Searching apps, on your own, not involving your real estate professional, that doesn't really work well. Relying on open houses to go look at properties and not making specific appointments to go look at properties, that doesn't really work well. Finding a realtor after you found the home that you want to buy, that doesn't really work well. I'm sure as you've watched the days coming on, you can probably really understand why those things don't work well. The way to do it properly is to hire your realtor early, have a discussion about your wants and needs with that realtor, get off of the online apps and get onto our back end system. Selling real estate in the Fraser Valley, we use a system called Paragon, which is way better than any of the public systems that you will have access to. And we can do things on here like create saved searches with much more detail. We can have custom alerts on there, custom criterias, all that sort of stuff. So you really want to get your realtor involved early and get the real search set up on the real program rather than doing it on the public sites. The reason why waiting for open houses doesn't usually work well, the people that are serious about buying homes, they're getting out immediately to go look at those properties, not waiting for Saturday or Sunday to come up just to go look at a property. Finding a realtor after you found the home, they're way late to the game, and time can really count when you found a home that you want to buy. So you do not want to miss a beat. You want to be right on that. So that's why we recommend, as we did in previous days, to get your real estate professional, a lot earlier. Now, we want to next figure out how we can analyze the listing that you found, help you be successful to buy it, and also stay ahead of the competition. So, what are some things that we can do to do that? Well, first of all, I want to remind you, you're not the only one that's looking at real estate. Let's use an example that you want to buy a townhome for $1 million in South Surrey. If you think you're the only one doing that today or this week or this month, you are sadly mistaken. We live in one of the most productive, busiest real estate markets in the entire planet. There is always people paying attention, and there's always people looking for great value in the homes that they buy. So when a home comes up for sale and it's priced well, it's a great looking home, it's well taken care of, it's gonna sell. So you want to make sure that you are not missing out on those. Hence why you want to get your realtor involved and get a real search set up nice and early. So you want to be able to analyze these listings like a pro, though. Your time is really valuable. So there's some things that you definitely want to understand. You don't always want to trust the photos. Real estate professionals are very good at marketing properties, and of course, they show you the good, they don't always show you the bad. So you not only do you want to analyze the photos and take a really good look at the property, you want to take a look at the details in detail. You're going to want to check out the map to see where the property is located. It's a long time to drive and go check out a listing only to find out that it backs onto power lines or backs onto Highway 1 or whatever that might be. You want to look for renovations. You want to question who did the renovations in case they're poor renovations, or maybe there's a bad layout. Maybe it's a layout of a home that you're not so into. Conversations about those with your real estate professional, and as they go through homes with you, that helps them learn so you can avoid looking at those homes in the future. And also, they're going to help you identify any red flags in the listing history, which is really important. Maybe the home was a past marijuana grow up. Well, that's certainly something you would want to know prior to going in. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to check for days on market. You want to see how long that home's been available. If it's been on for a long time, why are other buyers not excited about it? Why are they not buying it? Why is it not transacting? One of the golden reasons why homes don't sell quickly or, within a reasonable period of time is because the price is too high. So you're going to to want to really understand that your real estate professional is going to do a price audit for you, as we talked about in previous days. And also price changes. Have they done price changes in the past? And you can use that for motivation to get a little bit of a clue as to maybe how motivated they are. And certainly your real estate professional can even make a phone call and see what they can figure out, what they can learn about the seller and their motivations for selling. So now that you've done a little bit of analyzing for the listings that you're interested in looking, you want to get ahead of the competition. You want to set up instant alerts for new listings, and ideally, you want to get into them as soon as possible. Look, there is no rules in real estate, meaning that the seller is going to wait for other buyers to come. So, as an example, you see an open house listed for the weekend and it's Tuesday. You waiting for the open house to come that Saturday and not viewing the home during the week, well, somebody else might view it and they might end up buying that home right out from underneath you. So just understand you want to try and get into these listings as soon as possible, within reason, of course. So you want to get those instant alerts. Maybe you want to preview homes that aren't on the market yet. So that's your real estate professional calling around and seeing who might be listing a home in their office, one that might be available for you to check out. And also be realistic that underpriced homes, they're going to move really fast and they're likely going to end up in multiple offers. There's no such thing as a steal of a deal in the Fraser Valley and lower mainland markets. There's too many people paying attention to real estate. So just be aware that, if the deal looks too good to be true, there's usually something going on. You're going to want to make sure you investigate that to understand it. But nonetheless, you're still going to want to move fast to understand it because you want to take advantage of every situation that you have the opportunity to. So now that we're talking about how to get ahead of the competition and whatnot, I want to suggest a four-home rule when you're out looking at properties too. And the four-home rule is really that you don't want to look at more than four homes in a row. The only reason for that is because your brain becomes mush. It's really hard to start deciphering the differences in all these different homes because you've seen too many. What about the one with the really beautiful cedar tree in the front yard and the swing set in the back, and your realtor's like, no, those are actually different homes. So it kind of helps keep you organized in your mind about what you liked, what you didn't like, that sort of thing. So we usually generally recommend that you don't look at more than four homes at a time. It kind of leads to decision fatigue and it helps you stay sharp and really make better choices. So you're out searching for homes, and as you're out searching for homes, people are talking to you. Your friends are talking to you. They love to tell you things like the market's going to crash or you should wait or what a crazy time to be getting to a home, with this going on or this going on. As the day of filming this, Donald Trump has been in power in the United States for not more than about a week or so. And there's tons of talk going on about tariffs and whatnot. It's a pretty turbulent time. So I want to make sure that you understand how to predict the market accurately. What actually drives home prices so you can make an accurate decision. Should you wait to buy, or should you buy now? So let me give you the three biggest drivers of how to predict the market. The first one is interest rates and financing. As of the time of filming this in 2025, we've had crazy changes in interest rates. The COVID market of 2020 to 2022, we had the lowest interest rates that I've ever seen in almost 20 years of selling real estate. Fast forward just a few short months, the interest rates went up almost a full 5%, in about 9 months. And that really shocked the market. So interest rates and financing and rule changes to financing have an enormous impact on what's going to happen with the market. We find ourselves at this current time where interest rates now have come down about 2% from where they were at the peak. And now people are starting to come back into the market. And that just shows how the effective interest rates really affect people. Higher rates equals fewer buyers. They can't afford quite as much, and then prices tend to soften. So an example of that, maybe a $750,000 home at a 5% costs more per month than an $800,000 home at 4%. So you just got to kind of take that into consideration. The second on there is local economics and job growth. Is there anything significant going on economically? So I mentioned tariffs from the United States coming into Canada potentially at the time of filming this video. Well, that may or may not happen, but that could have a pretty, interesting shock or a pretty interesting result or impact on the real estate market, or it could not. You never know. COVID was a really good example of, a really big economic event that really changed the market in various ways. So you can consider things like growing job markets, or, is there more demand, or rather a growing job market that means more demand and prices rise, or maybe there's a weak economy, right? So people are leaving, prices fall. An example of this might be a new Amazon headquarters opening up in the area, and maybe that drives value in a certain area because there's lots of new people coming to town. Okay, so you've got interest rates and financing as number one. You've got local economic and job growth as number two. And the biggest one, in my opinion, is number three, which is supply and demand. Supply and demand at its finest. So I want you to understand how that works. Okay, low supply plus high demand equals bidding wars, equals price growth. Okay, we call this a seller's market. The conditions are for the seller. A high supply with a low demand, well, naturally you would think prices are going to go down. Sellers have to do what they need to do to woo buyers to come buy their properties. That's what we would call a buyer's market, where buyers have the advantage. Or you can have a balanced market where there's no real advantage to either party. So an example of that is, a town is losing jobs, seeing more listings than there is buyers to come buy them. Well, that's going to lead to price declines. And in fact, I'm going to show you on my screen here where this is a really great example, and a graph that I don't think many people pay attention to. This is from uh, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, the board that we practice real estate in. And it's called the Home Price Index. And this gives me a really good idea of what the market is doing and where it is likely headed. So this is based basically off the last 10 years as the time of filming this, so from 2015 to 2025. And you can see major spikes here, and you can see major declines. What you're going to notice, you see the arrow on the screen there. So in 2020, that's when COVID had struck. And you see the light blue line there between 15 to 20%, kind of the transparent, translucent line at the bottom there, or bar. So that represents a balanced market. When we get above 20%, so 20% represents 1 out of 5 homes selling. And that maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but in fact, even in some of the busiest markets, only about half of the homes that went to the market even sold. The other half didn't sell. So when 1 out of 5 homes are selling, or let's say 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, that means the inventory is shrinking and more people are snapping them up, meaning there's less available to look at. And the effect of that, as you would imagine, would be prices are going to go up. So by looking at the graph, you can see in 2020, and we all know the story of what happened with prices in 2020, you can see that the demand, the sales to active ratio, skyrocketed above 20%. So it went over 100% at a point, which just means we were eating into existing inventory left on the market. But that had a huge impact on prices because there were so many people that were wanting to buy real estate. Now, there's also the opposite effect of that. You can see the blue line going down as an example towards the last back half of 2023. Well, demand really softened. And there were some reasons for that that we don't need to get into in this video. But demand softened, and that had an impact on pricing as well. So, paying attention to the sales to active ratio and actually understanding and seeing what type of market you're in. Are you below 15% sales to active ratio? That might mean that you're in a buyer's market, where the buyers have the advantage. You're between that 15 to 20%, you're in a balanced market, or you're above that 20%, you're in a seller's market. Prices are going up really, really fast. So it's important to understand where the market is currently when you want to buy, and also where it's been. 1 month doesn't change everything, but certainly if it's been in a certain area for a few months, you can naturally think that it's going to remain there and have quite an impact on what might happen with prices. So that's really how supply and demand works. And you're going to have so many people talking to you about, should you buy now, should you wait, is the market going to crash, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of the time those people, they're not really understanding how the housing market works. So you got to understand short-term fluctuations in the market versus long-term appreciation. What do I mean by that? Well, short-term fluctuations are going to happen. Even just look at the graph I just showed you. Short-term fluctuations could be anywhere between 1 to 5 years, maybe. That can be driven by interest rates. That can be driven by economic things that are happening. That can be driven by short-term policies. Price dips happen, but they also don't last forever. I'm going to show you something in a moment here that I think you're really going to appreciate and enjoy. Rather than worry about short term fluctuations, When you're buying a home, especially, we all think of buying a home as an investment. I want you to think about it as a long-term appreciation event. Okay. 10 years as an example, maybe 10 years plus. Real estate has consistently shown us over time that it is going to grow in value due to inflation and demand for that real estate. A home bought, as an example, 10 years ago for $500,000 is likely worth anywhere around $900,000 today. That is the long-term growth of what can happen with real estate. And this graph I'm going to show you is really going to help sum this up because I want to get you to stop thinking about real estate in really short term bursts. Okay. Everybody's always trying to time the market. And, ideally, you buy as low as possible, but you're going to see that long term, it's paid off again and again and again. And of course, we can't predict the future, but if we want to predict the future, there's a good way to start, and let's look at the past. So, the graph I'm showing you on the screen here is just the price growth since 2005 all the way to the day of filming this in 2025. So basically, over the last 20 years. Now, I'm going to overlay this price increase graph with a light blue color. That light blue color is going to show where a 5 year period began and where that 5 year period ended in terms of just, 5 years going by. You can now start to see that the line of price growth is quite a bit above where the blue bar is finishing. Well, let's overlay it with red now. And I'm going to overlay it with red because this is going to show the growth in value over the 5 years. Now, notice the blue line, it pops up and down, above and below this red bar that is now showing on your screen. But the point of that is look at where it's ended up over 5 year periods. It's always significantly grown again, again, and again. Now, we're in the lower mainland of British Columbia. It is one of the most popular places to live in the world. We consistently get rated one of the top places to live in the world. Do you think that this is a good predictor and a good indicator of what might happen in the future based on what's happened in the past? And, this is why so many people believe that real estate is the ultimate investment just by things like this, by looking at graphs like this. Think of the wealth that has built for people who decided to take action, who decided to get in the market, be brave, and combat against all of their friends and not listen to all the people telling them the market was going to crash and this and that. Those people are worth so much more money today than they were previously because they decided to invest in their future and to buy real estate. So the smart approach to what the market's going to do is to think like an investor. You got to ignore market headlines, short-term little things going on in the market, and focus on market fundamentals, things like making sure you're getting a home in the right location. What's the demand doing? What's that sales to active ratio or that sales to active graph that I showed you? And what are the real growth areas that you might consider buying in? Investors do not panic over short term shifts. They buy based on long term value and they buy on fundamentals, like I just discussed: location, demand, and growth areas. So, that whole should I buy or should I wait? That's really an individual decision. Should you buy now? If you want to try and time the market, it's a dangerous game based on what I just showed you. But, are you ready and should you buy right now? Well, these are the things maybe you consider if you're thinking about buying. Do I have a stable job? I don't expect anything to happen with that. Do I have long-term plans? Am I going to be in this home for at least 5 years? In fact, that's a question we always ask people when we onboard them as a buyer. Does the affordability make sense for you? Can you carry it comfortably? Maybe you're buying kind of at the top of your affordability, but you're assuming that you're going to have some good news over the next few years with work because you're going to work hard for it. Are interest rates reasonable? Are you locked into an interest rate? Do you expect anything to happen with those over the next foreseeable future? And that's why locking in a good rate matters, something we discussed on one of the previous days. Now, maybe you should wait. Maybe now is not the time. Buying a home is not always for everybody, right? And there's nothing wrong with renting a home, but maybe, you want to buy a home, but you're not quite sure if you should yet. Well, good candidates to wait and see if they really should buy. Maybe your job or your financial situation is uncertain. That you don't really have a lot of, future prospects, or you're kind of unsure about an industry that you're in and what might happen with it. Maybe you're planning on moving in 1 to 2 years. And sometimes even just being like a younger person, I mean, your life can change really, really quickly. Maybe you're not super committed to your job and you go find, work in Calgary or something like that that pays you a lot more. Who knows, right? So you got to be, really have your plan in mind. And then the last one is the market is irrationally high and the long-term value just doesn't look like it's there. Just be careful with that one though. Maybe at the peak of COVID, the market was irrationally high. It didn't make a lot of sense. And we've seen that correction come back because of that. But that was also, largely driven by interest rates as well. So you want to make sure you're buying for you, not buying for anybody else. Really look at those market fundamentals. There is a cost to waiting to buy, of course, right? Higher interest rates can erase savings from a price dip. Lost appreciation. You wait 2 years and you sit in a rental and you give all your money out to your landlord instead of putting it into your equity, paying your mortgage and paying down your mortgage. So you might have originally started with a 25-year mortgage. Now you only have 23 years left, 23 years till you're not paying anybody anything, right? So you don't want to miss out not only on that lost appreciation in terms of paying down your mortgage, but remember the graph I showed you, what had happened with real estate values every 5 years, and how much growth there was there. You don't want to miss out on that, and when you're renting, there's no equity buildup. You're just helping your landlord pay your mortgage. So, the whole market's going to crash thing. Here's why that is a losing strategy. Okay. Markets move in cycles, they don't crash. Okay. Show me one real estate market in Canada that has absolutely crashed. Okay. Higher mortgage rates can cancel out price drops. So when rates go up, we did a great video on this. We do a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, which is likely where you're watching this on. When interest rates go up and prices go down, a lot of the times the money that you spend on that extra mortgage amount kind of cancels out or completely cancels out any of the price adjustments or the decrease in price that you're enjoying or that you think you're enjoying. You want to watch if prices dip. If prices dip, competition increases. When things go on sale, people buy, and real estate doesn't go on sale very often. And you want to make sure that you understand that when the market hits the bottom, you'll never know because it's too late by the time that you understand it's hit the bottom because it's already started going on the way back up. So that's why waiting for the crash is a little bit of a losing strategy. So thinking like an investor, how smart buyers approach the market: ignore emotions. Ignore your emotions. Focus on the data. Focus on the fundamentals we talked about. Buy in markets that have good opportunity for job growth or are getting infrastructure investment like a new SkyTrain line coming to the area, stuff like that. And, is the area really built for long-term appreciation? You got to be careful about timing the market, but you just don't want to sit on the sidelines for too long. Okay, so that's really the play there. Now, let's go, 180 from this. We've talked about the market crashing or how to time the market and how to predict things and how to get your search started. Well, let's actually talk about writing an offer now. And after this, we're going to talk about how to avoid some of the lemons, in some of the homes that you want to make sure you stay away from. But one of the things I want you to come away from this is how to write an offer to win. And there's strategies for that because the market can be super busy at times. It can be a little slower at times, but nonetheless, you want to get a great price or a great value on the home that you want. And specifically, you want to get the home that you want. If the market is crazy busy and there are multiple offers happening and whatnot, you want to put yourself in the very best position to get the home that you want because homes are relatively unique. There's no two homes I've ever seen that are exactly alike. So you want to make sure that you get the home that you want. So how do we do that? Well, there's four key parts of an offer. Okay, so let's really understand those first. Basically, it's the offer price. It's the dates you want to move in. It's the deposit that you're going to give the seller as good faith money. You'll give them the rest later on. And it's the terms and conditions that you choose to put on that offer. Conditions are what you put on there as due diligence to help you protect yourself, pending you discover issues when you're doing homework on the property. And terms. So terms are like the seller must do this or the buyer must do this, that sort of thing. Those are really the four parts that go on an offer. And each one of those has an impact on how the seller is going to feel about your offer. So there's a few things that you want to do. Number one, you want to make sure you're always protecting yourself. And due diligence is a huge part of protecting yourself when you're buying a home. You don't always have to wait, though, to do due diligence until you get an offer accepted on a property. You can also do diligence on a home before you buy it. So there's different ways of doing that depending on what the market conditions are. But due diligence is such an important thing. In fact, too, it's so important that years back, British Columbia actually introduced something that was unique in all of North America called the home buyer's rescission period, where a home buyer, if they want to rescind an offer for absolutely any reason, within 3 business days, they can do that. They can completely pull out of an offer in British Columbia. Now, there is a penalty attached to doing that. It's about a quarter of a percent that they would have to give the seller for doing that. But that's how much the government recognizes that giving a buyer an opportunity to do their due diligence is really important. And sometimes real estate in British Columbia gets really hot and heavy and it moves really fast. This was one way of protecting buyers to give them a sober second thought about the offers they were writing on properties. So you want to make sure that you protect yourself with those conditions and you're doing your due diligence either in advance or afterwards. But what are some winning strategies to make sure that you get the home that you want? You might have heard of things about buyer's letters, writing a nice personal note to the seller about who you are and why you love their home and what you appreciate about it and what you're going to do with it. And sometimes that can really play a nice emotional role with the seller and help build a connection to help you get the home that you want. You can also do things like your due diligence in advance, as I mentioned earlier. So things like pre-inspections, if the market is crazy busy and you're finding yourself in multiple offers everywhere you go, paying $400 to $500 to do a pre-inspection on the home that you're going to bid on might help you stand out from other offers because those other offers might want to do that after the fact they get it accepted. So does it cost you a little money in advance? Yes. But does it significantly increase your chances of getting the home? Also, yes, right? You can do things like escalation clauses. I'm not going to get into that too much here, but that's just really if there's comparable offers to you, you start throwing in more money, more money, more money. And you want to also be considered to consider being really flexible with your dates because oftentimes dates, especially in busy markets, are really important. A seller needs to go find a house oftentimes as well. So having some flexibility in your closing dates can be really, really good. And there's even terms you can build into your offer, like giving the seller unilateral ability to extend dates, let's say up to 45 days by giving you appropriate notice without you having to agree later on. I mean, think of how exciting that is for a seller to have that option in a really busy market. Now, there is tons and tons of other strategies. If you're interested in talking about those strategies, I mean, you can always connect with us and we can let you know. We actually did a video on this. We've got a document with 21 different things that you can do in crazy market conditions, but those are some of the bigger ones. The key takeaway, though, is I want you to really make sure that you're protecting yourself. So, as you saw in previous days, you're going to write your offer ideally, you're going to put your conditions and terms on there, and you're going to take those 7 to 10 days to do your homework and due diligence, figure out that the home is absolutely perfect for you, and then ideally you're going to remove conditions because the home checks out and you get to move into the home that you want. So that's how to write offers that win. And I feel like oftentimes buyers get really bad advice about writing offers. They get advice from people, maybe even their parents, right? And we all look at our parents like they know everything and they've been there, done that. And I want you to take this with a grain of salt, but your parents probably have only owned 2, 3 homes in their entire lifetime. You're getting advice on something they don't have a real frequency of doing often, right? So, I would suggest that you really listen to your real estate professional on best practices when you're writing that offer. And just remember everything you do has an impact. So if you write, what could be considered a really offensive offer to a seller where, let's say it's $1 million home and you're asking for $100,000 off the asking price, there's a good chance you're going to offend that seller. And now you're maybe offending somebody that you're actually trying to put a deal together with later on. And, later on, you really want this home. Is that the best way to go into it? You got to really understand these strategies and the impacts that everything you put on your offer does have an impact on how the seller's going to react. So really have a think about those. Um, so we've gone through writing the offers. We want to make sure that you're getting a home that's not a lemon though too. You've seen the stories in the newspapers. You've probably got friends that you've heard of that have bought what we call lemons, homes that they probably should have stayed away from completely to begin with. What are some of the ways that you can make sure that you avoid those? Well, you want to look for red flags in the listing materials. Okay, so certain words that the listing realtor might put in there. There's also certain disclosures that you're going to want to review when you're going through to buy a property. So in British Columbia, there's often one used called a property condition disclosure statement, and that is where the seller is telling you everything that they're aware of in the home. Now, this doesn't take away from your necessity to do your own due diligence, but it's certainly a nice starting point to understand what the seller is willing to put on paper and commit to about what they know or do not know about the property. The biggest money pits that you're going to experience when you're buying a home, and this is one of the reasons that you're going to want to do a home inspection, is the foundation. You know, anything wrong with the foundation of a property is a big, big expense to get fixed. What about the roof? You know, roofs can be a really big expense to get fixed as well. Plumbing's, flood risks, you know, natural disasters, insurance premiums. This is all stuff that you really want to understand. The other things that could happen is, what about bad renovations or homeowner renovations? That's something we see all the time. The homeowners are watching YouTube videos about how to do these renovations. They're not probably doing them right. So you want to make sure that you're understanding what's been done to that home, what was original, what's not original. This is where you might go visit City Hall, see if things are done with permits, or maybe they don't have permits. You need to understand the ramifications of just really bad renovations that might have happened. You want to understand strata fees and special assessments if you're buying a condominium or a townhome. That's a really big deal, and things that I feel like people don't really do. And there's more coming on that on a future date for these videos. So we're not going to get too into it, but you do need to understand them. And you want to understand the location. You know, certain locations kill house values. Certain locations have infrastructure coming, or things coming to the neighborhood that really impact the value long term. So, you know, what if you bought a place on Fraser Highway thinking it was beautiful and quiet? Not that Fraser Highway is quiet, but now SkyTrain pops up right beside it. And it's crazy loud and it's so hard to sell in the future. You don't want to do that, right? You want to understand what's going on in the neighborhood. So you really need to do your homework when it comes time to buy your next home. So guys, we've covered a lot today. I've been rambling a little bit, but don't forget there is a questionnaire down below in the description, and I want to make sure you pick that up because not only do you want to get a summary of everything we talked about today, but you want to make sure that you do this like a pro. You know, we talked about market conditions. We talked about how to write an offer that wins. We talked about how to stay away from the lemons, and we talked about how to really appease your friends and family who think the market's going to crash, and how to do your own homework and kind of time the market like a pro. Now, what's coming up tomorrow? We got some really exciting things. You know, you've got an accepted offer. What happens next? What do you do after that? We talked a little bit about how British Columbia protects home buyers. We're going to dive into that a little bit more on day 5. We're going to talk about keeping you out of danger. Okay. Burning money, getting into bad spots. How do you avoid it? What's going on with that? And lastly, we're going to talk about getting into the new properties. So these are all things you want to be very excited about because it's going to be a really good day. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to download our 21 grants and rebates available to homeowners and home buyers. If you do need help in the process of finding a home, you can get our information below as well and book a time to speak with me and my team. Of course, this information that I'm giving you in these videos is quite general, so we would give you much more specific information to your unique situation in that regard. And other than that, I'm going to be over the next video right now, and I hope to see you over there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you there. Cheers. This is just going on to say that you still really need to do your own due diligence. You don't want to rely strictly on what the seller is telling you. You still need to do your own homework.